Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Thanks for listening to the show. Join your hosts, Bill Alvstad and Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football.
Go.
Hey, hi, Seahawks fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with co-host Keith Myers. We're here to talk Seahawks football. I've got a great show planned for you today. Just kind of a lot of talking about the season, the roster, the schedule came out, the expectations that are out there nationally, and versus how we might feel about the team going into this season with the changes that we had in the offseason and up through the draft, and just kind of really curious as to how you feel about the team versus what everyone else is feeling about the team, as well as myself. And then we've got some division news to talk about right up front. How you doing, Keith?
I'm doing good. It's there's just a lot going on as far as like that kind of stuff. Schedule came out. A huge contract was just signed by one of Seattle's main rivals, and whether that's a good thing or not depends on a lot of different factors. But just a lot to talk about.
Yeah, well, let's start with that. San Francisco just paid Brock Purdy. Most of the people that are listening to the show will probably have heard that news. 5 years, $265 million with 181 fully guaranteed. 165 million over the first 3 seasons, 215 over the first 4. Dude's gonna get paid, and he earned it. Maybe, Keith, maybe he didn't. But the 49ers are just kind of pressed into a corner as far as that's what happens with quarterbacks like this. He's not like an upper tier top 5, top 7 quarterback in the league, but I think most people could find an argument to say he's definitely a top 15 quarterback, maybe even fringy top 10 if you take a look at some advanced stats and so forth. But I would argue, and maybe you would too, that in order to get into that top 10 fringy range, he needs a lot of help on the roster to surround him. It's not a guy that you can throw into any offense and expect him to find that big time success. Kyle Shanahan's offense, however, is ideally suited for him, and he's ideally suited for that team and that coach. So you mentioned, is it a good thing or a bad thing? I think in Seahawks land, it's a good thing to watch another team have to pay a quarterback like this when it's going to take away from the rest of the roster around him, especially next year and beyond. This year is kind of baked. They'd already kind of planned for that stuff. They did jettison a number of different players, but I just find it one of those things that almost every franchise goes through or will go through at some point.
Yeah. And so Seattle was basically facing a similar situation this last offseason. Do you pay a middling quarterback way too much money and hamstring the rest of your salary cap or not? Because the alternative typically is that you lose a lot of games because you don't have a quarterback.
Right.
And they chose not to pay Geno and went with Sam Darnold instead, who's a younger guy. And it was just Darnold being available is not a normal situation. And so if you are the 49ers, what do? Do you pay Brock Purdy way too much money? Or do you go back to not having a quarterback and being in that situation where they were a couple of years ago, where they traded a lot to move up, to the 3rd overall pick to draft a guy, and then the guy didn't even turn out. So they were just lucky that Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy,
that could have cost
ended up being
John Lynch and Shanahan their jobs.
Yeah.
If Purdy hadn't landed in their laps. Now, I'm
Mhm.
not going to say they didn't do really a good job developing him and so forth, but come on, last pick in the draft, 7th round,
Mhm.
and it worked out for them. So, talk to me just I don't want to spend too much time on this, but talk to me briefly about how John Schneider handled his situation. And you could kind of argue and go back to maybe even Russell Wilson's last big contract with Seattle versus how San Francisco and John Lynch handled that situation with Brock Purdy. I think you really kind of have to give John Schneider a little bit of credit for the way that he navigated that versus where San Francisco's at right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, I
And
would go
it's
back
not
to
ideal for either franchise, but which is
no,
more ideal?
honestly.
Which gives the franchise more flexibility?
I mean, more flexibility. What Seattle's been doing since the Russell Wilson trade is they have been going. Um, you could say they're going cheap at quarterback, which is a bad idea because quarterback is the most important position on an NFL team. But it's been calculated risk as far as going cheap. They have been trying to build their roster around a quarterback, um, knowing that Russ at the time and Geno since then, and now Darnold are not, um, Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. They're just not. They're not that kind of guy. But can you build a roster around them um, because you have extra money, because you're not overpaying a quarterback? Um, and then you hope that, a guy like Jalen Milrow works out because if he does, and he just explodes into being the guy that, if he reaches his ceiling, you've got an elite
Quickly.
player. Yeah,
Right.
you got an absolutely elite player at the position, and a fantastic roster around them. And if he doesn't, well, you still got you're still competitive because you've got a decent player, if but not a great player at the position. But you haven't overpaid to just have a decent player around. And that's kind of what the 49ers did. I like Brock Purdy. I think that I think the perception of him is that he's a system guy and that he doesn't really do much and all of that. But we've seen other quarterbacks falter and not be able to get the job done with that same roster around them. And he's done well. So I think that um, he's a good player, but he's not an elite player. That and they just paid him elite player money. And
Yeah,
at
not
some point,
necessarily top 5, but they paid him top 7. Top 7
yeah,
money.
they paid him elite player money. And at some point, you pay your quarterback that much, it comes out of some another position. So what position are they going to be really thin at or just super young um, because they couldn't afford an established player? Because that's what happens. You have to,
S-
you know, steal from one position to pay your quarterback.
So, part of our conversation today, we're going to talk about the schedule. We're going to
Hmm.
talk about, I think, the NFL power rankings, just peripherally, just to kind of add to the conversation of what is the national perception of this roster look like. And part of that is the conversation about the 49ers. Now, the 49ers last year ended the season at 6-11. They went through some injuries and all that kind of stuff, but also the roster is diminishing, and it's even more diminished this year. Yet the NFL still seems to like them on average more than the Seahawks.
Hmm.
The Cardinals finished the season at 8-9, and wildly considered still a contender in the NFC West. Sometimes over the Seahawks, and the Rams finished 10-7 along with Seattle. Some advanced stats indicate Seattle had really a better season than the Rams, but nonetheless, the Rams squeaked out a fifth tiebreaker to get into the playoffs. Seattle missed it. So that's kind of the arc of the division. Where do you see? What do you? Let me ask you this before we get into the schedule conversation, which I want to have. What are you seeing out there, perception wise, that indicate kind of where they think Seattle's going to finish? And it starts with the betting line in Vegas, but it's much deeper than that. It's almost universal in the way that Seattle is ranked around 15th by almost every major news organization out there. There are some that there are some that are way lower. I saw one today where they were ranked 27th. With an expected win of 5 wins.
Yeah. So
which was absurd to me.
Vegas is over under for the Seahawks is 7.5. They predict them to be a below 500 team. But then you look around the league, and Pro Football Network has the Seahawks at 24. NFL.com has Seattle at 19. ESPN has Seattle at 16. I mean, nobody has Seattle high.
Yeah.
And they're, as far as how they think that the Seattle's going to do and how they are. And it's strange. We'll just go with that. Seattle, being a market that, we're up in the corner of the nation, and we don't have necessarily the market power of a New York team or Dallas or an LA team, right? They never get any breaks when it comes to public perception within the national media. And I get that. Like they're playing up their their profits is really what what they're doing, and it's fine. Whatever you want to go, yay! Look at the NFC East, and then they're going to be mediocre again, like every other year. Fine, but
Dallas has 7 primetime games. 7, Keith.
They have
Come on.
I know, but Dallas is thought of as a potential, like competitive team. Like they're going to be there.
I don't know. I think it just draws the eyeballs.
Yes, because they have a huge fan base that
right. Yes, right, of course,
that watches. And I honestly, okay, sure, fine. I'm whatever. It's one of those things where it's like I get it, I see it, I don't care that much. But the
one of the most egregious finishes that the Seahawks have is from Walter Football. Now, I don't really care about Walter Football. It's not about me, but I want to just kind of highlight it because it's so out there. So they have us ranked 25th. They have us finishing 5-12. They have these teams in front of us: the Saints, who finished 8-9 last year; the Colts, who finished 4-13; the Raiders, who finished 8-9; the Dolphins, or the 8-9 Dolphins; the 4-3 Raiders, I should say; the 4-3 Jaguars, and the 5-12 Bears, all ahead of Seattle, among other questionable teams. They have the Rams second overall in the NFL. This is how bad this is. It's crazy. 49ers 11th, Cardinals 20th. So okay. So wait, we kind of have this.
How are they rating the 49ers that high?
The highest I've seen the 49ers ranked in the really solid national media is 15th. Essentially, they're about 15th overall. I think Seattle averages, if I'm going to say there's an average, somewhere in about the 14th range. So they're really like back to back, but their rosters are wildly different now. Everyone's kind of holding on to that 49ers team from 2 years ago, and they're thinking they're going to get back there without the injuries and so forth. But they're a wildly diminished team
without the talent
at this point.
They've
Yeah.
lost so many good players, which I mean, it happens. Like
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
no team can stay good like indefinitely. Everything comes and goes in cycles, and the 49ers were, the legit like powerhouse from the division for a few years, but they haven't been. They certainly weren't last year, and it's not like they got a lot younger. It's not like they added a whole bunch of talent. They lost a bunch of talent. And this is why I don't think the national media has this right. I just don't. And
I don't either. And I think what it comes down to is the perception that we didn't do anything on defense, and the things that we did do are just okay. For example, we got Dexter Lawrence in, but Dexter Lawrence isn't,
he's
the
not
player
Dexter
he
Lawrence from
was.
3 years ago. Yeah.
Right. And he's been injured and so forth. The other thing we did is we got Wari. Some feel that he's been overrated a little bit. Some feel he's not quite completely ready to play every down out of the gate, et cetera. But, whatever. But nonetheless, let's say the defense doesn't get any better, but they finish top 10 across, all the different metrics. Since 2020, teams that have had a top 10 defense for the season averaged 10.5 wins.
Yeah.
Not considering any other offensive measurement whatsoever. Let's say the defense finishes top 5, which is what they finished in the last 9 games of 2024. The top 5 defensive teams average 11.3 wins per season since 2020. I didn't go back further than that, but that was far enough for me for this conversation. Keep in mind that the defense in 2024, Seattle's defense in 2024, did that against the number 1 toughest offensive schedule in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And, the defense finished 6th in pressure rate, and now they've got Nuwasu. They did add Lawrence. They've got Wari. Plus, you're going to get a second-year leap from Byron Murphy. I'm going to say pretty confidently that the defense is going to be as good or better than what they had in 2024. And it was pretty darn good. Now, the offense is, and last year in our own division, which is, I think, really important point here, Mike McDonald comes in and stops the Rams, held them to 13 points. This is 3 consecutive games I'm going to talk about here. Held the Rams to 13 points in regulation, held the 49ers the next week to 17 points. Shut down Kyler Murray and Arizona the next week and held them to 3 points. Mike McDonald has figured out the offenses he goes up against in 6 games this season. So now on the offensive side, surprisingly, after Oluwatimi came in, after Lucas came in, after Lumea starts on the right side in week 11, after that, they were actually the 7th best rushing offense in success rate in the league. Now, they still didn't run it very often at that point. So it really didn't matter in the end because pass blocking was still an issue. But nonetheless, there's some hope there. And the offseason edition. So everyone in the national media, the national narrative overall, if you kind of add it all up together, it's we got rid of Geno Smith, we got rid of DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, and we replaced them with inferior players in Cooper Kupp and Sam Darnold and company. And I would argue that that's really not the right way to look at it. They're not considering the scheme or the coaching staff or the coaches that are coming in for the offensive line. They're not highlighting really Sam Darnold's advanced stats. When you go look at Geno Smith and Sam Darnold and you compare them apples to apples, Sam Darnold had a better season in every possible advanced metric that you can come up with to Geno Smith in 2024. Now he did that with the Minnesota Vikings offense. I get that.
Mm-hmm. And there's also one significant place where Geno had the better thing, and that is under pressure. Geno is a better quarterback.
That's not true. The advanced metrics say that under pressure, Sam Darnold had a better completion percentage completion rate at 69.3 versus Geno Smith under pressure at 66.5.
Yeah, but there's a lot more to it than completion percentage.
Well, there certainly is. There certainly is, Keith. Absolutely. But nonetheless, I think that perception, though, is slightly off. That's all I'm going to say. Without going into it a little bit more, I'm just saying, I think, there are certainly things that Geno does that are better. But last year, there were certainly a lot of different things that Geno did less well than Sam Darnold.
Like take care of
So I'm just saying, let's just say it's a wash. All I'm trying to get to is, okay, let's just say it's a wash, but we got a better, a younger version of essentially Geno Smith, because if you take a look at all the advanced stuff, Sam Darnold and Geno Smith are actually really pretty good comps together. They do a lot of the same things. They throw the ball downfield. They can make all the throws to all the places that you need to in the NFL. They make quick decisions. They get the ball out when they need to quickly. Geno runs into a little trouble there. I think part of it is that Geno really is trying to play hero ball. They put him in that position a lot. And it kind of took away from his ability to throw the ball with some accuracy and so forth. But nonetheless, and one thing that he does do is, even though Geno is somewhat higher on balls that are turnover worthy, Sam Darnold is actually slightly higher in that category. If you remember, in 2023, Geno had a pretty high turnover worthy pass percentage, but his turnovers were actually low because he just lucked out into a lot of drop balls that could have been interceptions. In 2024, those balls were intercepted. Vice versa with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold went through 2024 with a higher percentage of turnover worthy throws, and less of them were intercepted or dropped. So whatever. But I'm just saying that, and within the offense, the context of the offense, I think Cooper Kupp and Scantling and Jigba, I think that's going to be fine. I mean, I really think the offense is actually going to be better. I mean, it has to be historically bad for it to be much worse than it was.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that one of the things that people miss is the offense wasn't good at any point last year. It was genuinely just not good. The running game was historically bad. The passing game wasn't good. They didn't score points. They didn't move the ball. They were bad on third down. They were just bad. And a lot of that had to do with Ryan Grubb. Sorry, Ryan Grubb fans. It did. That was one of the worst coordinated offenses we've seen. Like, just period.
It was amateur hour. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah. And so now they're getting in Clint Kubiak, they're getting a guy with experience, with a proven track record. You know that it's going to be better.
With a stellar staff around him.
Yes, he put together a really nice offensive staff. I think that we haven't talked enough about that. But, I think that right there, the offense gets better. The offensive line should be better, given that you're going to get a full off season of healthy Abe Lucas, so he'll be ready to roll. You've got a massive upgrade at left guard with Gray Zabel, and
you're going to have some learning. You're going to have some pains there, but upgrade nonetheless.
Yes, but it was nothing but pains there with the veteran before.
Nothing but pains.
It was nothing but pains. So the occasional, rookie moment is going to be far better than what we have.
But you're also going to get flashes of greatness.
Yes. And I think that, you get another year of development and opportunity for guys to improve out of the right guard spot and the center spot. And I think overall you're going to end up with an incrementally better offensive line. I don't think it's going to be a great offensive line.
Let's just call it league average, like 16th or 19th even. If
it gets to league average, if it gets to 16th, the offense is going to be fine. The offense is going to be good. I mean, this is one of those schemes that really works in today's NFL. Just like what San Francisco runs, right? And I think that is one of those things that's going to matter quite a bit.
What do you
And
say to
so
those detractors that say, listen, Seattle completely pushed the explode button, the reset button. They've completely, you take a look at how many starters are coming back versus new starters and new scheme, and it's going to take time to integrate and all of that.
bringing in or bringing back bad players does not make you better just because they were here before. Now, they didn't hit the reset button. I mean, let's face it, Geno Smith was not like an elite quarterback. He wasn't. He never was. He had 10 really, really good games 2 years ago. Well, really, it was in 2022. And he's kind of been like writing off that for the last couple of years. This year, like 2024, was not a good year for him. And the idea that losing him is going to cost this team wins when he wasn't good, I don't see the logic there.
Think about
Um,
this, Keith. Think about, and I challenge almost everyone to think about it this way. And this is kind of the way I think about it. We won 10 games last year, fell just
yeah.
short of being in the playoffs. Every other 10-win team was in the playoffs with a really bad offense.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, not
and
only
what
a
I
really
just
bad
said
offense,
earlier
but
about the defense, a
it was
defensive top 10 defense winning 10 game and average, a
it
top 5
was
defense, an average of 11 wins. Come on. Like,
it
we're
was a
already
really
there.
bad defense for the first 8 weeks.
We finished
And
overall 10th in DVOA on defense, including all the bad games.
yes, and so they were 30th after 8 games,
Yes.
and then ended up 10th because they were that good over the final 9 games.
Yes.
They were that good that they went from 30th to 10th because of some changes they made halfway through the year. They were a top 5 defense over that 9-game stretch by a lot of different metrics,
Yes.
including DVOA. And then you look at what did they do? What changes have made? They haven't lost anyone on defense that was a contributor.
The only person they lost that contributed was the dude from Denver,
Dre Jones.
Dre Jones. Other than
Dre
that,
Jones.
we got everyone back, man. We're running
Yeah,
it. We're running it
and
back.
and Dre Jones was not particularly good last year.
And we changed him out for DeMarcus Lawrence, essentially.
True, but they're also getting Uchenna Nwasu for the whole
Correct.
season rather than just the last like 5 games.
Fingers crossed. He's
Yeah.
going to stay
But
healthy.
that's what I mean. He's going to be ready at the beginning. So you're not really replacing Dre Jones with DeMarcus Lawrence. You're replacing him with a healthy Uchenna Nwasu. And that right there is like a massive upgrade. And I think when you look at the other side of the ball, losing DK Metcalf sucks. He was he is a very, very
Hold
good
on 1
player.
second.
But I think the more important part is everyone is like freaking out over the loss of Tyler Lockett. Tyler Lockett has been in decline now for 3 years.
He's still a valuable contributor at 46 receptions and 700 yards, a few touchdowns. But absolutely, Keith, absolutely. But you got to replace that
You don't think that Cooper Kupp can replace that
in 12 games because that's what you're going to get.
But don't
I'm
you
just
think that
being real.
Cooper Kupp can replace that level of production from Tyler Lockett in 12 games?
Yes, because that's what
He
Tyler
can.
Lockett, or that's what Cooper Kupp did for the Rams last year. 700 yards, 40, 50 touches, etc. I wanted to, before you move on too much, I want to go back to the defense for just a second. You don't think in year 2, Mike McDonald is going to drag that defense up to be even better? Like, that's what he did in Baltimore. Everyone talks about, well, he's a first-year coach, blah, 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 blah. Well, that's true for Seattle, but he also coached in Baltimore and went from a 26th ranked defense when he got the team down to third. Was it third in his second
Third
season?
and then first.
And first in his third season.
Mm-hmm.
We can still expect some improvement here, people.
Absolutely.
And I expect improvement. So,
and guys like
but
Nick Emanwari
also,
and
yeah.
and that bump from Byron Murphy up front, like
yes, expect improvement from Byron Murphy.
They've added talent to an already really good defense. How is that how is this a bad team? Like, how do you go from being really, really good defense and then you add talent to it?
I heard a person with a semi-legitimate argument, and it's twofold. One, and we're talking about Nick Emanwari here. So Nick Emanwari comes in as a rookie. It's acknowledged that they're planning at least to start Nick Emanwari in the nickel, which I think is the perfect spot for him to start in this defense, and then we'll see how it expands from there. That allows Devin Witherspoon to move to outside and really kind of diminishes Job's responsibilities. Yes. I think he loses the most snaps in the defensive backfield. We'll see what happens there. They're talking to a couple players. That might not be the complete room, and I hope it won't be. But the argument was, and I can't remember who it was saying, well, Nick Emanwari, he's a rookie. We don't know exactly what he's going to get. The tape says that, he's this and that. He has some deficiencies, dropping back into coverage, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. He's really good, focused up on the line. At the nickel, that's where he's going to be. We'll see how that works. The argument, the main argument, though, was not him. The main argument was moving Devin Witherspoon from a position where he's really, really good right now in the nickel, playing up close to the line of scrimmage, a tackler, being physical, rushing the passer occasionally, et cetera, to outside boundary corner where he was Pro Bowl level, maybe even a fringy all-pro level at his current spot. But if you move him outside, there's no guarantees that he's going to maintain that same level. This is not my argument. I'm just saying, I'm just repeating what I heard.
I honestly hate that argument because
I did too.
The idea that you're not going to use Spoon all over the place the way you always have because you have Nick Emanwari on the offense is dumb. This is a team that they built, this scheme is around taking advantage of the unique talents that they have. And they are going to continue to move Spoon around at all different points and do all sorts of different things. And Emanwari is not going to change that. When they go big nickel and bring in an extra safety so that they can have an extra guy in the box, sure. Spoon's going to be on the outside. But you know what? He was on the outside in that same situation last year. And so, yeah, and when you go small nickel and you go with an extra cornerback, it's not like Josh Jobe is a guy that is going to play on the outside, right? So he had to be in the slot because that's all he is. Guess what? That didn't decrease Spoon's impact. The fact that he had to be on the outside instead of moving into the slot in the nickel. They still moved him around. They still find ways to get him in places where he can make plays. I just don't buy any of this. It's not an
either or.
This is not a Spoon issue. This is a situational matchup dependent. Do you want big nickel with Nick Emanwari and extra safety, or do you want small nickel with Josh Jobe, who's a slot corner?
What it really comes down to for me is not being able to recognize that Mike McDonald is one of the best signal callers on the defensive side of the ball in the NFL.
Absolutely.
Proven over a long period of time and puts players in a position to be successful.
But yeah, not just signal callers, but game planning,
strategy guy.
Design, strategy, all the stuff that's done before game day.
And all you got to do is look at how he did against the NFC West. I mean, that's really we struggled for so long, like years, 5, 6 years against our NFC West opponents. Like
Yep.
the Rams had our number. The 49ers had our number. It was just a matter of time before the Cardinals had our number with Pete Carroll. I love Pete, Hall of Fame coach. I will die for Pete. Like I love him, not trashing him. It just ended up being that way. We couldn't figure it out. We couldn't solve it. He kept running back the same thing, different coordinators, same thing, same results. Now we get a new guy, new perspective, young guy, had tremendous results in Baltimore, brought that to the Seahawks. First year, not his players, but turned those players that he inherited, except for a draft class, into a wildly successful unit by the end of the year that can now be repeated and built upon, which he will do this year.
Yep.
And so I'm super excited. Super excited.
I am super excited too. Now, I look at the defense and I go that this is the same group of guys. They lost one meaningful contributor. And that was Dre Jones, who was not good last year. He spent most of the season being bad, genuinely bad. And yes, he did improve and was one of those guys that whose play drastically improved as the rest of the defense's play improved. But he was he was part of the problem when things were bad. And he's the only guy you lose, and you're replacing him with Uchenna Nwasu, and you add DeMarcus Lawrence as insurance depth behind that. And then you add a guy like Nick Emanwari, and then you might add a guy like Quill Griffin or Rasul Douglas at corner just as for a depth piece. This defense is going to be better than it was a year ago, and it was fantastic for the last 9 games.
So we're going to come back and talk a little bit more about the offense as this thing goes on and some more defense. But let's go through the schedule really quick. Like, let's spend 10 minutes on this thing. And then I want to talk about strength of schedule when we get done. At home, we start with the San Francisco 49ers. Then the Steelers on the road. Then the Saints come into Lumen Field. Then we're on the road at the Cardinals. Talk to me about the first 4 games. How you feel about that? What's your best case scenario?
Well, I love the 49ers being the first and last game. I think that they are Seattle's biggest rival, whether they're good right now or not, whether Seattle is good right now or not. The 49ers are those are the games that when you go to buy secondary tickets online, the prices are crazy high because they are. I love the fact that it's the first and the last game. They are a beatable team. I'm sorry. They just are. This is a team that wasn't good last year and got worse over the offseason.
And we handled them on defense last year.
We did. And
our offense sucked. Our offense wasn't good, and we split that, but I think we'll win both games this year. Anyway.
The Steelers are a team with a fantastic defense, but literally no quarterback.
So let's say it's Aaron Rodgers. Let's plug Aaron Rodgers in there, and let's talk about the Steelers' chances with Aaron Rodgers.
The Aaron Rodgers from last year, their chances aren't good. Aaron Rodgers was a huge part of the problem in New York. He was not. It wasn't
multiple levels.
Yeah, this was not the team was so bad because it was New York that even Aaron Rodgers couldn't save it. No, Aaron Rodgers is old. And if you look at what he did last year, just him, not the rest of the team, just him, he was bad. They might be better off if in terms of wins and losses, if you're the Steelers, just sticking with Mason Rudolph and going for that. Because that
will be a defensive battle of a game, though, and a reunion with DK Metcalf.
Yes, it's odd that he went there. Well, I guess he was traded, but he didn't choose. But he's got no quarterback thrown to him. He's going to have a rough year.
And now Pickens got traded out too. So,
yep,
it's an interesting scenario for him.
The Saints are a beatable team. I like some of the stuff they've done to rebuild that roster.
I like Kellen Moore as a head coach. I think he's going to be fantastic. Over time.
Completely new coaching staff. Kellen Moore is one of those guys that can. He's so cerebral. He
Yes,
knows
X's
football.
nose guy, right? But he's not dynamic. Like he's not going to
Yeah,
stand up in front of a room and command it. He's going to be pretty subdued.
yeah.
But great guy, great guy.
But a great guy, and a guy that I really like. I think he's going to be good. But I look at that roster and I don't see like a legit contender in at any level at any
No,
place.
no. They're going to be in the bottom 5 in the NFL, I believe, out of a
Yeah,
really bad division.
yeah. It's a really weak division overall. And then you look at the Cardinals. The Cardinals are the Cardinals. Are they better than last year? I don't know.
That's the question.
Are they, if they're the same
Had
as
a
last
great
year?
draft 2 years in a row. They've had a good draft. They've had a good offseason and acquisition, but you still got Kyler Murray.
Mm-hmm. Who had a decent year last year? Not a great year, but he had a decent year. So I think
Yeah.
you look at that.
Nonetheless, yeah, I mean, they won 8 games. I mean, the expectation in the desert, and I live here, is that they win minimum of 10 games this year. I mean, that's the floor that everyone's talking about. So there's a lot
Yeah.
of excitement around this team. I think most of it's legitimate, but until Kyler Murray proves that he can win meaningful games at the end of the year. But this is a game on Thursday Night Football on the road for the Seahawks in September against the Cardinals, which typically, at least in the last few years, they've been a pretty decent regular season team, at least through the halfway point of a season. It'll be
Yeah.
interesting to catch the Cardinals when they're fresh and healthy and hungry.
Nobody's fresh and healthy on Thursday Night Football. I mean, overall, through the whole season, yes, but Thursday Night Football is its own issue.
And I didn't check to see where they were at in week 3, like the Cardinals. Like, are they on the road, or who'd they face, et cetera. So,
but
and we'll get
honestly, the
into more
Seahawks,
depth into this schedule
whether the
as
Seahawks are
time goes on.
favored or not, I don't think matters that much. But I would say that all 4 of those opening games are legit chances to win.
I agree. All right, let's move to the next 4. So we've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The nice thing about this is it is at home. This is the 50th anniversary of the Seahawks franchise. It's also the 50th anniversary of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers franchise. It would shock me if the team in the league didn't do something at this game to celebrate that. So anyway,
They
Tampa
should,
Bay is
absolutely.
a pretty decent team. It's a roster that's competitive and should compete for a playoff position this season, but it's at home. Then we've got the Jaguars on the road on October 12th. You've got the Houston Texans coming into Lumen Field for a Monday Night Football game on October 20th, and a bye week, which is really nicely positioned in week 8. What do you think about up until that point?
Well, okay, so actually, that group of games is going to be fun. I agree. Tampa at home, they're a better roster than people think. Overall, I don't know if they're. I think they're a 10-win team, so that's not a gimme in any way, despite um, what national perceptions might be. But it's at home, and I love the fact that that's at home. The Jaguars on the road. There is talent in Jacksonville. I don't. We're so used to the Jaguars being just the laughing stock of the league that people realize that they've had a couple of really good drafts in a row. They've got a quarterback. There's some talent there. They might be tough. They also might be Jacksonville and be pathetic. We'll see. It all comes down to the coaching staff. But Houston is a legit team. Their defense is good. Their quarterback is good. And CJ Stroud, they had a lot of struggles last year offensively, not really because of Stroud, but because of everybody else, the running game, the offensive line, that kind of stuff. They've made some key adjustments there in terms of roster wise, and they're going to be tough. They actually should be favored to be a playoff team, not a playoff contender, but a playoff team. Absolutely in. And I love the week 8 bye. That's a perfect spot for it. You have
It's a perfect
7.
spot after Monday Night Football. And then you get a bye.
Yeah, because you
And
don't
then
have
you play, then you play Washington when you come back. So, okay, so let's talk about the next 4. You've got on the road against Washington Commanders. You are at home against the Cardinals. You face the LA Rams on the road for the first time in the season, and the Tennessee Titans on the road, 2 back-to-back road games, which really doesn't happen again until week 17.
Yeah. So
So
3 out of these 4 are on the road. Washington, we saw last year, made this huge jump. They looked really good. They made it to the NFC title game. Uh,
that's going to
they're
be a
going to
hard
be,
game.
I think they're going to be better in year 2 under that coaching staff, and with so many young players that are just getting better. Now that they're getting better coaching, I think they're going to be tough. If
That's
they
going to
aren't,
be the toughest game on the schedule for me.
honestly, I would agree. I think that is a really good football team at
Well
this point.
coached.
Extremely well coached. Dan Quinn deserves so much credit for the job he did last year. The Cardinals, we already talked about the Cardinals, right? They are this is usually at the point where they start their slide, and any good that they show early in the season disappears. The Rams might be the oldest team in the league, and that's never a good thing. Um,
They're
and
pretty
honestly,
young on their defensive line. They've got a nice up and coming defensive
that's
line.
true. Their offense is old, but their defense actually is pretty young. And if you look at what their defense did last year, it started out really, really bad, but all of those young players that were rookies a year ago really came on strong down the stretch. I'm not giving
Yeah,
the Rams enough credit.
Verse and Fisk are
Yeah,
legit guys up front.
I didn't give the Rams enough
The
credit. The
thing
Rams
about
are a good football team, and they're really, really well coached. That's going to
yes,
be a hard game. It's going to be a fun game. Like, that's an important game for both teams.
back-to-back division games. That could be that little stretch right there. November 2nd, 9th, 15th could or 16th could be, a very big tell in this season if we can pull out 3 wins there. Okay, and then Tennessee on the road.
Tennessee is not a good football team. They're bad at so many different places.
Yeah,
They are
and the
rebuilding.
quarterback is going to get confused in this game. Okay,
Yeah.
so the next stretch is interesting for me. The Vikings at home. They're a well coached team. They're going to be good, but new quarterback this year. Let's see what happens. You got Atlanta Falcons on the road. You've got the Indianapolis Colts at home, and then Thursday Night Football. You've got the Los Angeles Rams for the second game in the series at home.
Yeah. You said the last stretch. This stretch to me is tough. The Vikings were a 14-win team last year. Now they're going with what is essentially a rookie quarterback, because McCarthy didn't play at all last year because he tore his Achilles in the preseason or in training camp and never played. But that's still a good football team with a good coaching staff.
14 wins last year.
Yeah, the Falcons, I think, are a team that people are underrating, and
8 wins last year.
there's more talent there than people think. Indy is bad.
And Penix is going to be the quarterback now from day one.
Yes. No Kirk Cousins. It's going to be Penix, and Penix. The team was clearly better with Penix under center last year than it was with Cousins, which should surprise absolutely no one. And then the Colts. The Colts are not good. They are straight up not good right now. So you got and then the Rams. The Rams are, like I said, the Rams are going to be tough. Home, away, doesn't matter. That's a good football team. Really, really well coached. So you've got Minnesota, Atlanta, and the Rams there that are going to be tough games. Rams are on the road. So
the interesting thing is we're saying all these are, tough games, or you'd be challenging this, that, and the other. We still have the 11th easiest schedule in the NFL. We'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
So the last 2 games, Panthers on the road, 49ers on the road. No inclement games this year as far as weather is concerned. We don't have to worry about the weather. It might be rainy in San Francisco, but it's not going to be freezing. The last couple games, I mean, depending on how the season goes, you know, the game simulator at ESPN says the Seahawks could start 5-2 or 6-1, but then predicted that they would only win 3 more games and go 8-9.
8-9.
Yeah.
I don't
So
care.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's just crazy to start
I'm
that like
sorry,
that.
but the Carolina Panthers are a mess. And as much as they have invested in Bryce Young, I have seen nothing from him in 2 seasons to suggest that he is an NFL quarterback. And I will believe it when I see it at this point because we're 2 years in. That looks like a bad team that's going to be having a bad year and tanking for a new quarterback by that point. And then San Francisco, are they a legit team at this point? Do they still have enough players to field a team from a fairly old roster?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like that's
Yeah.
just San Francisco at the end of the year with all of the all the guys they've lost and all the injuries that they've had and all of that, like that's going to be really tough for them. It really is. So, it doesn't matter who they're playing down the stretch. I think they're going to have a hard time. Just the roster's just not in a position to compete down the stretch. Like those 2 games, yes, they're both on the road. They should still both be wins.
Yeah. I just don't see a way, you know, the Rams finished 10-7 last year. I don't see a team that improved in the offseason. I think that they stay similar, the same, or regress slightly. The Seahawks finished 10-7. I see improvement. I see a team that's ascending. I'm not just being a homer. That's the way it is.
Well, the Seahawks had
The
a
track
rough
record.
schedule last year. They had a really tough schedule last year, with a lot of
And they
really
faced
good
a gauntlet
teams on it.
of a schedule there in the middle 4 games where they lost all 4 too. Yeah. So, you know, I could easily make an argument that they'd be at least 5 wins out of the first 7 on the
Mhm.
schedule, you know, at the bye. You could make an argument that they could be 6-1. And
Yeah, but
then
even if
on
they
the
are,
back half,
they're 5-2 going into the bye, and then you look at the rest of that schedule, and you think there's only 3 more wins? Really? You think
yeah, I
there's only
see at
3 more
least,
wins?
I see it at a minimum of 5 more wins. But you could make the argument that there's 7 wins there to be had.
Yeah.
Um, you know, so what I'm saying is, you know, my early forecast is the floor is like 11 and the ceiling is like 13. And I'm just saying it based on the way I'm looking at it. Excuse me. And you take a look at the you know, the strength of schedule stuff, the 2025 strength of schedule, the 21st hardest with a combined 4.7 or 0.474 opponents win percentage. Last year we were the 18th hardest, 4.98 or 0.498. We play the AFC South and the AFC or the NFC South this year, so that's going to be, they have
That's
a
helpful.
0.390 win percentage combined last year.
Mhm.
They have 7 games against teams with winning records last season, but only 2 of those 9 teams finished with a plus 11 wins. So they're, you know, we're either even or 2 teams finished better than us that we're facing this year. 10 games with teams with losing records. Seattle faces 4 of those 10 teams that finished with 5 or fewer wins. I like our chances. I like our
Yeah.
chances. I really do. So
I think
with
overall
all of
you
that
got
combined, go ahead.
I think overall when you look at everything and you combine all the stuff together, is that Seattle will face an easier schedule. They will have a better defense and a better offense overall in terms of league rankings and stuff. Better defense, better offense, easier schedule. How does that result in significantly fewer wins.
Like five wins. How does that result in 5 wins? How can you come to that conclusion?
That's the part that really gets me. And I try really hard not to be a homer. And on top of that, people, long-term listeners, and especially Bill can attest that I am incredibly cynical when it comes to the Seahawks, and well, really, for that matter,
You're very
any Seattle
realistic.
sports teams. I do not jump on bandwagons because I've fallen off too many of them. Um, I don't understand. I straight up do not understand why everyone is so down on this team nationally. Yes, they lost their quarterback, who wasn't a good football player last year. Why are we so stressed about losing Geno Smith, who wasn't good? Is that really the reason why
For the same reason that the San Francisco 49ers paid Brock Purdy, because the unknown of changing a quarterback is so intense in the NFL that you would rather pay mediocre than risk that chance. Now, the Seahawks knew they were going to sign Darnold. They wouldn't have made that move off Geno Smith blindly.
No,
I don't believe.
no, they had
So
already
they kind of had
contacted
that in their
Darnold.
back pocket. They had that in the back pocket, and it worked out for them because really it's a lateral move minimum, I think. And he's very well suited for the scheme. So I think it potentially could work out even better. But I agree. I mean, you've got the offensive line stuff, you've got the coaching, you've got the scheme, you've got, obviously we moved off of certain wide receivers, but also I think we added to that room as well. And then Gray Zabel, you add that into the equation. Arroyo, Martinez, Milrow for some fun plays on occasion. The offense, Keith, I think if you can go from 28th, which is where we finished last year, 20, 26, 28, something like that, most metrics. Even if you just get into the 18 range, 16 range, league average, which I think is doable.
Absolutely.
Especially with the competent play calling, just that alone. I mean, you combine like a number, let's just say it's number 5 defense with a number 16 offense, you're going to playoffs. You're winning a game. I mean, those teams perform well in playoff games. And so I'm pretty confident that we're going to at least have 11 wins out of this team.
Yeah. I think that I just don't see the logic behind a better defense. Even, at some, I can't, the offense won't be worse. So a better defense, a better offense, and a weaker schedule ends up significantly fewer wins.
With a seasoned coach now.
Yeah. What is, find me those things don't add up. I'm sorry. Like basic math, those things do not add up at all. And, you're going to have a hard time convincing me otherwise. So I think the national media has it wrong. I think when you look at people who around that are very familiar with Seattle and its roster, whether it be the local beat reporters, whether it be guys like me and Bill, or whether it be guys at the Athletic like Sean Michael Dugar, who used to be a beat reporter.
Even guys like Colin Cowherd that pay attention to the local market. That's, he's originally from Seattle. Guys like that are
Aberdeen,
kind of get it. They get what Seattle's doing, and yeah.
And the guys that know the roster, that really pay attention to all the ins and outs, all have Seattle finishing as a very competitive team, as a team that a playoff team, possibly a division winner, possibly a team that could be reckoned with in the playoffs because of that defense.
Why do you say possibly in leading all three of your sentences?
Because it depends what other teams do. It depends on injuries. It depends on there's so many factors at this point. I would say, who's the team to beat in the NFC West.
I think that we need to have that podcast. Like, I
Yeah.
think that that's a great podcast because I haven't yet taken a deep dive into each of the three other teams in order to really be able to talk shop on
Yeah.
that. But yes, I would like to have that conversation because that's really going to be the key is
Mhm.
winning your division. I mean, that's the goal. That's the
It has
first
to start
goal that
there.
Mike
Yep.
McDonald's going to have. And
Yep.
yeah,
You start with winning your division. Once you win your division, well, really, I mean, you start with getting into the playoffs, then you worry about winning your division because of the way the wild cards work now. But um, are they going to be a playoff team? God, I can't see them not. Now, can they compete and win their division? Absolutely. And I think it depends on if the Rams play the entire year the way they played down the stretch last year, they're going to be tough because they were
does this,
really good down the stretch last year.
yeah. The only thing that would be concerned about is the Sam Darnold injury, which would derail any team, not just the Seahawks. I mean, if Patrick Mahomes went down, that would be it, among many, many other teams. But can if Sam Darnold was out, let's say 4 or 6 games, could Drew Lock come in and win 3 of them based on the rest of the roster? I would
The de-
say he's got a 50-50 shot at winning games
the,
in the
the
NFL.
the defense will keep them in every single game.
That's the nice thing about having number one defense. You're going to be in every game.
Even if Darnold goes down and you bring in Drew Lock, is Drew Lock going to matter enough? The defense is going to keep them in games. And
Especially if they
honestly,
can run the ball.
Jalen Milroe and his ability to score from anywhere on the field might matter more than Drew Lock, even if Drew Lock is the starter and takes most of the snaps. Because Milroe is going to be one of those guys that they're going to bring in certain situations on the goal line, third down, the wildcat, and is just going to generate explosive plays. That's all he's going to do is generate explosive plays. And it might be enough that even if Drew Lock plays Drew Lock level football, that this team is still good enough to go win.
Yeah. Wow. I haven't heard you say that for a while about this team. That's how good the roster is. This on the defensive side. Now the offense, let's see. I think it's going to be that that it can help carry a team, but we'll see. I just don't want it to get in the way.
Yeah, the defense is the strength of this team. It really is. It is the strength. It is the strength of the Seahawks right now. That doesn't mean the offense can't do some things. I think they can, but the defense, I think, is going to be absolutely legit. And there's only a couple of positions where the depth is questionable to a point where some injuries could make a significant problem for them. They could overcome some injuries and still be outstanding.
Yeah.
And that means a lot in the NFL.
Could they withstand a Leonard Williams injury?
Yes.
Could they withstand a
withstand?
Devin Witherspoon injury with Leonard Williams at the same time?
No. Honestly, I mean, you're talking about removing the 2 most talented players on your defense.
I know. What about Ernest Jones? So Ernest Jones. Yeah. See, so there are some equations here.
There is no depth at that position, and Ernest proved that he is seriously the most he is the keystone, right? He is
he might not be the best player.
Work. No, but he was
but he is
made
the
everything else work. It went from being terrible to fantastic with the insertion of him. And I think it just had to do with people trusted him to do what he was supposed to do. And so they did what they were supposed to do. And everyone stopped freelancing when he came in. And it mattered so much. And I don't know if they could overcome the loss of him. And you're right. He's not the most talented player of the group. He's not the best player of the group, but he might be the most important player of the group. And that would be really rough. If Ernest Jones goes down, I think Seattle's season goes off the rails fairly quickly.
So this is going to be a long off season, but a fun off season. We've got a lot of conversations to be had about all the things we just talked about and more. Yeah, it'll be fun. We're getting into almost June. Not quite, but I mean, a couple weeks and we'll be there. And then it gets really quiet for a while. I think there's a few mini camps, but after that, it's radio silence for about 6-7 weeks.
We're only about 3-ish weeks before I disappear for a week to go to Hawaii. So,
nice.
Yeah. By the way, Bill, you're gonna have to worry about having a show or having a week without me. But no, overall, like I love what the Seahawks have done overall. I think they've added a lot of things, including an offensive coaching staff, which is really fun. We should probably have a show specifically dedicated to those changes. It's okay to be excited, Seahawks fans. And this is coming from the grumpy old man of Seahawk land.
I haven't felt about, this way about a season in a roster since 2015. I'll be completely honest. I mean, there were a couple seasons there where they won 12 games once and, but still felt like there were some flaws. This is a team that's really ascending and, has me feeling like 2012 vibes, and so
2012 vibes is, I absolutely agree with that. 2012, they did great. Things fell apart in the playoffs. They gave up a lead with 34 seconds left in the playoffs and to Atlanta and all of that. But it set the tone for a special 2013 season. Yes. This season has 2012 vibes. And like I said, I am not the homer that is, yay, Seahawks. I'm not super optimistic all the time like Bill is. I am typically much more cynical, and I am like, guys, get excited. Get excited. This year's going to be fun. I really think it is.
All right. So let's wrap this thing up for today. We'll come back later next week. We'll come back next week and we'll have some topic. I'm sure that's fantastic. You can find Keith at Blue Sky, at Myers NFL. You can find me at NW Seahawk. The show is Seahawks Playbook Podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform and our YouTube channel, and hit that subscribe button and share it if you like it. And we'll see you next time. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook Podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NW Seahawk. Keith is at Myers NFL. And the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.